Science India Forum honestly believe that teacher has the foremost role in this process. That is the prime aim of our Teachers Empowerment Program. Your kind cooperation and guidance will enable us to make it better each time. Let's all work together for our children, the future leaders. As you all know, SIF is an organization working under the umbrella of Embassy of India with a group of like-minded professionals volunteering their gallant support to the benefit of children and you teachers, spending their precious time. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the entire Science India Forum Abu Dhabi team with a note. Our special note of thanks to our Honorable General Secretary, Sri Harish, the technical mind behind this, Sri Sajid and Nitin, for their ardent effort to make this session happen. You all saw the effort of Sajid, wonderful effort. Thank you, Sajid and Nitin. Dear teachers, enjoy the session and kindly share your valuable opinion so as we can improve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste to all. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Sudhir. I really want to not take too much time thanking everyone. So a big, big gratitude and thank you to all who have made the choice of being here together. Like Mr. Sudhir Balakrishnan said, it's all like-minded people. So the very fact that we are all together is that we believe in something that is common among all of us today. I'm a psychologist and a student counselor at one of the GEM school in Dubai. I really want to give a personal thank to Mr. Sajid to making this platform possible for me to reach out to so many people at one time. I want to really thank doctors who have taken their valuable time out to be a part of this. I'm really honored. And if there is some inputs that you could share, please do let us know and we can discuss that. I would not be talking about the COVID-19 in the sense that we are bombarded with lots of information about the do's and the don'ts. So I'm going to talk of something that I have a little knowledge about and experience, especially with teachers. Like I said, I work in a school, so I coordinate. I have a lot of discussions with teachers. I do a lot of presentations as well with my teachers in my own school. So I think this is the best platform for me to advocate psychological resilience. So I go straight into my presentation, thanking you all for being a part of this. I need to share the presentation and we can begin. Yeah, so just make it full screen. So we're talking about psychological resilience. It's being a very positive approach and to adapt. Yeah. That's what resilience is. So we're talking about positive adaptation in this most adverse situation that you all are in, we all are in. In fact, the whole universe, I should say, is part of this pandemic. So we're talking about psychological resilience, psychology, because we're talking about our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior during this pandemic. The aim here is, of course, to provide a little bit of self-information tips that could be useful for all of us, including our students that we are interacting on a daily basis. So we are going to talk about those information that are a little research and evidence-based, and also it would be practical for us to make use of some of the information that I have put into it. Talking about psychological resilience, it's the ability to withstand, recover, and grow. So we are trying to put ourselves in a futuristic position as to once all this is over, how are we going to recover from what we have experienced during this process of the pandemic. we all have to believe in ourselves. So the focus will be yourself. You know, we are all family people. We all are working in some institutions. We have our priorities. But today's session is more about yourself and putting yourself in the forefront. If you're at your best well-being, I think you will be the best resource for all the people you're connecting on a daily basis. So that would be our focus today. So we are talking about a resilience, which would mean that once all this passes, we need to have a better self, or, you know, we must be transforming ourselves into a much better person from comparing ourselves from what we began with during the beginning of the pandemic. Now, how do I build my resilience? Like we said, we talk about emotional resilience, we talk about psychological resilience. How do we define that we have this immunity, a psychological immunity within ourselves? A lot is similar to our physical immunity that we need. We always hear a lot about how strong your immune system is. It's better to fight and protect yourself from the pandemic. So here we are talking about your mental resilience, your mental immunity, and what are the few factors that are so important to build your resilience. There are many, if you go and read in the research papers, there are so many things that have been put forth. I have tried to summarize it into very basic 5 things or 4 things that are important in our lifestyle, and we could bring all different elements into these 4 categories or 5 categories, I would say. A very strong, important factor of resilience building is your own personality trait. Reflect on yourself and try to understand what kind of personality are you. Are you a person who is very nervous? Are you a person who is very pessimistic? Are you a person who is very optimistic also? What helps in these reflections is that you get a clear idea as to how you can deal with these adverse situations. Also, it's very important to know what kind of support system you have. Do you have a good family support? Family is not limited to just blood relation, but it's also to do with your friend circle, your social contact, your work community. So all of the factors that you would put under an umbrella of family, we are talking about all those people who give you that warmth and care. We're also talking about emotions. Psychology cannot be excluded without, it cannot be going without emotions. So we have both the negative and the positive emotions, also correlated to the personality traits of that person. So what are the kind of emotions he or she is experiencing most of the time in their life? All this would be a major factor in building up your resilience. There are researchers, not very old researchers, because I think we have started to emphasize on resilience. We have started to emphasize on mental well-being. We don't exclude people with challenges with mental well-being these days. We have become more inclusive. We have more people with mental difficulties, and we are here to support. Even the support system has extended, not just from professionals, but family and friend also. So we see a lot of recent studies done in the 90s where they do talk about, positive correlations between resilience power and your personality. So if you're an optimistic, outgoing person, you see the positive side of things, your resilience are automatically at a better level than from a personality trait who sees everything difficult or challenging and worries for them. Why is it different? Just like height, weight, just like your immunity system, we all have different levels of resilience because it's so subjective to your environment, to your personality traits, to your family, which is not the same for everybody. So we all have different levels of different challenges with building up your resiliences. So that would be the next thing that we really need to talk about. And because we have more of our educational attendees, I'm so happy to have principals also attending this session. And so many of us are teachers. What we model is what we would give to our students. And it's so important to even build resilience as a part of the curriculum, as a part of daily practices for our students, so that they are able to cope with the challenges which they might face, they may not face. They could be of a help for themselves or for others as they grow into an adult. So I think it's core for us in this session to also work upon the 7 C's of resilience. Very easy to understand. Maybe it's a little difficult because there could be some of these C's that we are practicing, but not thinking that it could build resilience. We talk about competence. We all want to be competent, but how are we going to be competent? So we do need to find opportunities for ourselves, for our students, so that you give them to develop a specific skills. We all need to have our own passions. We all need to our forte, like, I'm good at this. That's competent. It's not scoring the highest marks, or it's not, going ahead academically. Of course, I'm not denying the fact it's important, but we also have to recognize and encourage ourselves and our students about the specific skills that they may have. Confidence, a solid belief that yes, if I'm not so good, I can definitely work on it and get better. Connections, when we are not alone. Why is pandemic still a little lighter than any other catastrophic situation or personal loss? Because we know that there's a large number of people who are affected with the pandemic. So connection would be when you know that there are many people who are affected, you're not alone. You're not the only one who is suffering because of any kind of disaster or problems in your life. So these are the major 3 C's of the resilience to build it. Character, we have already talked upon. It has to do with your personality traits. It has to do with what kind of emotions rises more often. If you monitor, just like your weight, if you monitor and see that what kind of emotions are you experiencing most often. Are you very angry most of the time? Are you happy most of the time? Do you see fun in small details? Do you enjoy each day your work? All that is a part of your character building. Contribution, how do you contribute, is also very important. Taking the scenario of the pandemic today, I would talk about how we all can contribute. And it's very important for us here to talk about what you can also do during these things. I found something very interesting. The social media shares so many humorous things on WhatsApp and other platforms. And I said that once a young boy who would just lay down in the house for the whole day was categorized as a lazy person. Today, he is considered as being responsible because he's just at home. So it's a requirement of the situations, but it also how much you can contribute. So if you're following the rules and regulations of the country, if you're following everything that's important or the do's of the pandemic situation, so you are also contributing. So you must feel happy for every little things or efforts that you are doing to contribute for a larger cause. Also very important when it comes to students, we all encourage our children to do act of kindness. We ask them to do donate, to be a person who is indulged in charity, altruistic characteristic. All these are also interesting in contribution. As psychologists and as you read a lot of research paper, you find that people who help others, it becomes easy for us to ask for help. Now, when I talk about mental well-being, we hesitate to take help when you're depressed, when you're sad, when you see that you're angry, and you take it that, okay, maybe this is my problem. There are people who have difficulties with obsession, whether it's thoughts or behavior, and they hesitate to ask for help or even talk about it. Now, helping others also helps yourself, because then you think that it is a common thing or a common practice or it's a norm. So if I'm in a difficult situation, for me, it's easier to go ahead and ask for help. Coping, of course, we all use this word. I can't cope with the subject. I can't cope with the chaos in the classroom. So it's a very common word used very often by adults and students, but it's also important to see what specifically you're doing to cope with that situation, whether it's an emotional problem, whether it's a physical problem, whether it's an environmental, what are the strategies that you're using to cope with that? Also, when you cope, you must focus on saying physically and mentally to let go something. Coping is not like you have to finish everything. It's not about perfection. It's not about completing everything as expected, because then you're burdening yourself, and that could be sometimes difficult to manage in a situation like a pandemic where you have limited resources. There could be technical failures, difficulties, challenges, and all that. So coping is also to say that it's okay. Failing is not the end of life. It's just, an opportunity to redo something or relearn something. And I think this is very important to impart this information also to a younger generation. Control, we must realize that we do not have a very great control in this situation. Actually, it's not in our hands completely, but we have that little portion, where we can take care of ourselves, our family members, follow certain rules and things like that. So definitely, don't think that you have no control on the situation. There are a lot of things that you could do in your personal life, in your family, and that will also encourage you to say that, okay, I'm part of the decision making in the house, or I'm part of controlling certain elements in the family or in your colleague community or in your teaching faculty. So these are the 7 C's of resilience. There's a lovely book, as I've shown in the slide, which is very good to read for informations to deal with resilience with children and teens. Coming to the basic challenges of what we are facing right now. And the simplest thing to say is worry. We are all worried. We are tolerating a lot of uncertainty. Even today, now we have completed 4 weeks of distant learning as teachers. We are into our 5th week, but still we are tolerating a lot of uncertainty and managing lots of worry. You must believe that it's fine, even on the 5th week, to feel worried. Many of us, when I actually started to prepare this presentation, it was the initial week of the pandemic and the distance learning. The scenario was much difficult. It was much different also for teachers, because the kind of questions I used to be asked, or the support they needed, was much, much different. And the last meeting that I had yesterday, the situations and the coping strategies has changed. So definitely we are seeing a positive move over the week, but what is still remaining constant is that we are still tolerating uncertainty. And somewhere back of the mind, we are feeling unsettled. Big changes are happening. Some of us are still coping, because our resilience is different in different people. Everybody has their own levels to cope with this concern. How do we manage? Not going more into the challenges, what are the worries? I would like to talk about how you can manage, because I think that's the way I can support the teachers. Notice when you're worrying. Definitely, you would have a time during the day that you would be experiencing most of the worry. If you note the time or the frequency of worry, it helps you to manage it, whether it's time frame, whether you need some kind of support. Is that the time you really need to sit back and relax? Do you need to do something different to balance your anxiety, your worry? It's also the best thing to do is to remind yourself that simply worrying doesn't help. I mean, it's good for an advocate who constantly worries, because he has to fight for a case and he don't know what the opponent or somebody is going to come up with, what kind of evidence and thing. So physically, if you're worrying, it's fine. If there's a leak in the tap and you're worrying and you have to call somebody, you've got to repair, fine. But when you talk about mental worries, if it goes beyond a certain level, then it becomes unmanageable. So you have to frequently tell yourself that this will not help. Simply worrying doesn't help. So what you do next is focus your attention on the present moment. Focus on something that you have control on. Like probably, the time management, maybe cooking, maybe having your lesson plans on time, meeting your deadlines, or something like that. Even social connection. So focus on something when you find that you're worrying too much. Problem solving, the cube. I've given this example to many, so I find it a little oversaid now, but I would still use the same example, because this is something that you would find in every home. And not all are experts to get all the 6 faces of the same color. If somebody gives you and say that, okay, can you do it? And if you can't do it, you just say, no, I cannot do this. And maybe I pick up something else that's more interesting, or that's something that I am sure of I can do. Because at this point of time, you don't want to feel like a failure. You don't want to disappoint yourself. You don't want to feel your competent level going lower. If you can do it, show it and experience the pleasure of achieving or doing something that you're really good at. So that builds your confidence definitely. So that's about the problem solving skill. So scrutinize your problem solving skills, see if you can do it, go ahead, bring in bright ideas in your team, express it, share it with your heads. If you can't do it, just say no. And I say, probably if I can't do this, maybe I can be of help in some other areas or field. There is a little overlapping of some of the information that's put on these presentations, but talking about specific challenges, I'm sure we have not experienced pandemic before in our lifetime. This is our first time. But it's not that this is the only problem we have faced. We must have faced a lot of personal problems, a lot of work-related problems. Now, it may not be in the same degree, but it would require your resilience. It would require your coping skill. And that's what you need to reflect right now. If you have had a natural disaster experience sometime, think of all that you faced through. Think of all the requirements you needed. Think of all the coping strategies you used. Whom did you approach? Who was helpful to you? How did you manage it? What was your change in yourself, in your own experience? All that reflection is going to help you to build your resilience at this point. And it's very important that to believe in ourselves that, yes, I have passed through. It's also a reminder that this situation will also pass. When, of course, we are not sure, but we definitely know something that has come has to pass away. There's a lot of information in the American Psychology Association research articles and things. I have tried to summarize it into 5 very important factors. Now, what we are talking here is about very important factors would be, of course, your coping strategies, taking care of yourself. Like I said, I want to emphasize on taking care of yourself. Most of our time goes in our family time, it goes in our work. If we are teachers, all through the day, we are thinking about our students, if not in per se, about the lessons, about the presentations, technical informations, and all sorts of things. Do take care of yourself. It's of the primary importance to build your resilience. A very positive outlook, like I said, a lot of repeat informations, but it's very, very important. How good is your social support? How are you monitoring yourself? So if you wake up in the morning and just think of these 5 very important aspects of your life, I think it will do a massive build up in your resilience. Be positive, but be realistic also. You know, don't outgo in your optimism. You know, don't be over optimistic, but limit yourself. Be aware of the facts of the pandemic. Be aware of how much you can control and how much you can contribute in this situation. How do you judge your optimism? Some of the questions that you can ask yourself is that, what's the worst situation, you know, or what is the worst outcome of this pandemic? So you're mentally talking to yourself. The more you talk about your emotions, the more you word your emotions, it becomes easier for us to handle rather than just thinking and being quiet and not letting that expression. How realistic is that outcome? So, like I said, if you're someone who sees the glass as half empty, you're always going to, you know, exaggerate the outcome. So see how much is realistic of what you're thinking of the outcome. Is there an alternative outcome? I'm so glad that most of our teachers are still continuing with our professions, and we are reaching out to students. We're trying different means. Now that's being realistic rather than saying, okay, I cannot, you know, everything is going to stop, nothing is going to go ahead. What would you say, not just to yourself, it's also important what kinds of words, encouragements you're hosting to your colleagues or to your family members. So if you're going to be worried all the time and you're only going to be pessimistic in words and action, it's going to have a negative effect also to the people who are around you. So it's like a similar virus that would just spread, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Identify your strengths. As teachers, I know of so many teachers who struggle with technology, me also being a part of that, but take it as a challenge. And I think having a challenge to work on, even in these crisis situations, is the best opportunity. So is it you want to see the situation as a crisis, or you want to see it as an opportunity to learning? There are n number of PD sessions online to train you with, using your technology, to using platforms that is new to you. That will build your confidence when you are upfront and when you're dealing with your students online. You can share the information. You are up to the mark to the information about using different apps. So even as a school, try to initiate team building where you can exchange informations about different apps that you're using, explore it yourself, and that would definitely be using your strength. Some of the teachers are doing wonderful with the PowerPoint. Some do have difficulty. So choose your strength and say, okay, this is what I can do best, so let me take up that responsibility. That's how you can use your strengths as teachers. Very important factor that most of the time we think it comes naturally, gratitude and kindness, but the good news is that you can develop these kind of habits of gratitude and kindness, not being selfish, but being a person who rely on self-care. So a lot of things we teach our children, but sometimes we fail to understand the scientific approach of gratitude and kindness. We do want to donate money on the donation boxes or the charity boxes. We want to give away clothes. Now, it's not just about being spiritual or religious or just being human, but it's also taking care of your own self. Because every act of gratitude or every act of kindness releases beautiful hormones in our body, which is so much beneficial for our own well-being. And this is scientifically based. So we really need to take care whether we are doing enough to bring those hormones into our body in action, and are we experiencing the good hormones in our body. So very important to do some kind of gratitude or some kind of kindness act randomly, as we say, not just children, even as adults, we need to have it in our daily activities. Now, how do we do that? It's very subjective. Everybody has their own ways of gratitude and kindness. Research has said that if you can have a book and every day, if you could just note down 3 good things that you did in your whole day, that could build at least 20% increase in your emotional and mental well-being. So just noting down things like what went well, what was something that you liked, did you hear some good compliments, or did you hear something that was a good feedback? Did you give a thank you to somebody? Did you, give a feedback to somebody else? All that is so, so important in our life. So just noting down those factors. If you have met a deadline and you're happy about that, make a note of it. So all these things are definitely a strong point that would improve your chemicals in your body, and you must try strongly. Coming to personality traits, the research also says that people who are extroverts, they have a very high level of dopamine, and also these people have a stronger resilience. So I think we need to build in all this information in ourselves and try to reflect that which are the areas that I can change in my personality trait, in my confidence level, in my competence level, and how can I improve the secretions of these hormones and feel much, much better about things. So all of them, I'm sure you've heard of the happy hormones or the happy chemicals, and it's sometimes when I talk to some people, they don't believe that actually these hormones are released when you do the gratitude or kindness act. So not just preach your students to do it, but do it yourself in small, small ways, that doesn't have to be big activities. It can be small things like drawing, sending a mail to somebody for thanking for something that they have done. All that is important. Coming to one very interesting hormone in the pandemic that I would told, it's called the oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is also called the bonding molecule, and this chemical is released with physical touch, which is very difficult in a time when everything is online. But that should not stop us from building a contact. So this is also important, that the relevance of social media would be important to develop oxytocin. You don't overdo it, but it can help having, an online or a video conference with your own family members or your old friends and alumni, and all those things would definitely build up your oxytocin. So use social media, but use it in the right factual, informative, necessary framework. All these hormones helps to regulate your mood, and you must have experienced a lot of variations in your mood during your pandemic, also because you're in the house within your limited space. So all these hormones would definitely help to regulate your mood, your sleep. It's the best thing. Like I said, see it as a crisis or an opportunity. So see it as an opportunity where you can actually have the recommended hours of sleep, because it's so important to balance your mental well-being, also your physical well-being. Most of the time we are overeating or we don't feel like eating. These hormones will also help to keep your appetite up to the mark. Your digestions, because we have so much of less physical activity, it can also help in your digestions. Learning ability. So when it comes to children, whether they are your students or your own children, it will also help them in their learning ability. And last but not the least, the memory. We often forget the dates, Okay, what day is it today? What date is it today? How many days have passed away? All these are the things that are coming frequently in our conversation. Oh, is it Sunday? I thought it's Monday. I mean, when we are at work and constantly on a move, we are more up to date about all those things. So all the 4 hormones and even more can help you to build up your memory and all the things that's essential for a strong well-being. It also works, most importantly, it works as an antidepressant and builds your self-confidence. So every time you just share something, you feel good about yourself, that helps as an antidepressant. Looking after yourself, can't talk less about this. You have to take care about yourself. Put yourself in the forefront, whether it's your eating habits, your sleep, take care of procrastinations, see that you're doing good enough work for yourself. Be upfront to talk about any challenges you're facing. If you're upset or worried about your parents back home, inform somebody in your team that, yes, I am worried, so that if there is any problems in your work-related task, you can always have a backup saying that, yes, I had a period where I was going through a difficult time. If there are some technical difficulties, inform your team or your head so that you're less worried about, how am I going to meet up with the deadlines? Be true to yourself and be true to your feelings as well. A big discussion can be on media, because we are relying so much onto media, whether it's the WhatsApp media, or whether it's the news that we are hearing all the time, whether it is informations from your group, everything. So we do have to have this informations. I think Sajid says calling. I hope everything okay.
Ma'am, 5 more minutes.
Yes. So we're talking about the media influence. See that you find useful and factual information. Stick to time. Like, I'm sure those phases over where the whole day you would be watching the news or online and things like that. Set time limits and stick to it. Consider which groups you want to hang out with, because it can be very depressive. Even before the pandemic, there was research on Facebook, and there was more number of people with depressions, and we don't want more depressive people now to tackle when you're already tackling a big crisis of pandemic. So be careful, engage in people who are helpful and not something that would hurt your personality or making you feel lonely. Working from home, I think we have quite well adapted for the last 4 weeks. So I think I will not talk much about working from home. 3 things very important: time management, organizing yourself, and keeping your heads or your supervisors or your family members up to date about what schedules you have to reduce the number of stresses you have. Managing anxiety, I'll quickly go to it because we have already spoken about the hormones. We're talking about taking in stress too much will affect your other parts of your brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, to make good decisions, because that area of your brain is responsible to make good decisions. And it also tries to reduce the alerts that are sent by the amygdala or the stress alerting system in our brain. So we don't want the stress to overpower our decision making. So try not to make any decisions when you are stressed or when you're angry or upset, because clearly that's not the best time. How you manage that anxiety, you really need to focus on breathing. We are hearing so much about breathing exercise, mindfulness, yoga. All the reflection on breathing would help to manage your anxiety. Even managing conflicts, where suddenly all of us are at home all the time. So we could have a lot of disagreements. You could have a lot of moments which can be stressful at home. So we really need to see really how much we need to indulge in these kind of activities and how much you need to refrain from them. Again, the best way to manage is breathing. Just focus on yourself, be calm, move away from such situations that trigger anxiety, that trigger conflict, and practice a lot of breathing exercises. Managing loss, we've already spoken about the uncertainty and the worries, which is quite normal, but we really need to pay attention to how much we need to control our worry. Work on the things that matter to you. If it's your work, your home, your time management, focus on what you can control. Don't get worried about when the pandemic is going to get over and when everything is going to, it will, on its own course, it will, but you do what best you can have control on. I think the positive consequences of the pandemic, being more optimistic person, we are becoming more resilient. We are learning so many new strategies within ourselves, which we never knew. I know of a person who was so worried to stay alone, have comfortably been alone for the last 4 weeks and still managing every affair of his or her requirement. We need to be more kinder and empathetic, because we hear a lot of news, and the news that we hear are not always very positive. Connecting, we have to connect because we cannot reach out to people physically. So using social media in the most positive way. That's it from my end. Give me just 1 more minute, Sajid sir. And I just want you to give some tips on managing positivity. Writing letters to yourself. It's an exercise that have been researched, and it really makes a lot of difference to your personal positive well-being. Just writing to yourself what you want to do something in the next 5 years or 10 years. What's your dream about? What is the good things that you think you can forward for the next coming years? Talking and writing in your own journal good things about yourself. Hardly, we want to believe that we are best, but go deeper and find what kind of person you are. End of the day, have a tick box and I say, okay, I made a good friend today. I made a good decision today. I like the way I look today. I did something very patiently. You have to focus on those good things about yourself. It's great to be me. It's not being snobbish, it's about taking care of yourself. And these exercises really help you to build your resilience and your positivity and your mental well-being. Write down once in a week. You don't have to do this every day. Maybe on a weekend, maybe just beginning of the week to warm up yourself. Write down the skills that you're good at. Write down one good thing that you want to work on. Write down an achievement that you had through the week. So a kind of reflection, which is very helpful, and acting confidently. You must believe that it's a habit and it can be developed. So look at people you admire, look at people who are your role models, see what they do, have pictures of them, go through their website, see what things they're doing, and try to build those in yourself. Simple exercise, put sticky notes in your bedroom, in your washrooms, on your mirror, and say good things about yourself. Give a feedback to yourself to build your resilience. With that, Sajid sir, I think I'm done with my presentation. Any questions, any concern, anything you want to share, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So, teachers, it's open for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I can. Yes, sir, please.
Yes, the first question is, of course, she has explained very, very nicely all the aspects. That what I have understood is like a paradigm from negative thoughts to optimism. Is it,
Absolutely.
madam?
Yes, absolutely.
From all the negative thoughts, and actually to build up personal assets.
Absolutely.
Is it only personal assets or assets of others? So
no, if
contribution.
You take care of
Yes, contributions. So first to develop and then build up our personal assets, whatever
you have to practice yourself.
Yes,
first.
and also contribute to and extend it to others.
Absolutely. That's
rightly said in the beginning. Rightly said in the beginning. Of course, keeping ourselves inside without interacting with other humans outside is a great. We make the world a better and safer place. It seems. Yeah. Is right. That is also. That is also a contribution.
Yes,
it's a contribution
absolutely.
to the society.
Absolutely.
As long as possible, we keep ourselves safe at home without actually physically contacting with others. Is a great contribution to the world to make the world safer, abiding by the rules and regulations. Is that right? I have understood.
Absolutely. That's what I meant. So we don't have to sit saying that I've done nothing. No, if you have sat at home, it's a big contribution to this big.
So the employer also should realize that if people are there inside, that means they are contributing to the safer world. Is right?
Absolutely.
At present.
At present. In this situation, that is the best thing that you can do.
It's a great contribution is that keep ourselves safe at home and clean at home. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yes, fine. So my question is not that one. I just summed up. I understood that actually developing a personal asset and then contributing for others is right. Changing changing our personal assets to others also to build up this kind of resilience.
Absolutely.
Mine is some of the factors really depend on our genetics. This resilience is not that one which we can easily develop. As you say, yoga, these things, breathing, all these things are fine. How far a person can succeed, I want in quantitative, besides the factor of genetics. Genetics is like early childhood and experiences and our luck and fortunes. There are many things which form the resilience. It's not that you or I can become a resilient overnight or over a month.
Definitely not. No.
Yes. So how much or in percentage one can develop by following all the the factors and the characteristics which one can develop is resilience.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, because it really makes me also think, what I'm going to talk about. So it's very important for us to believe that if I need a certain change, if I think positively that, yes, maybe I can develop this, that is the beginning of the journey of changing yourself. But if I say that, okay, it's genetic, if I'm going to say that I have diabetic parents, so definitely I'm going to be diabetic myself, I can't hear.
Some people suffer from anxiety. They go to psychologists to take some tablets. Any kind of situations, imagine worst of things. It comes out of the genetics.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But we don't give up. There are interventions, there are therapies, which is highly based on, if I have to just come in front of a person who is facing anxiety, the first thing would be to talk about calming or breathing or letting that person experience that emotion, because we don't want to cut it immediately and create more anxiety for that person. Slowly bringing that confidence that if this has happened, you can change it to something else desirable. So creating that positive feeling within that person that yes, you can change, you can motivate that person to bring in those changes in that person as well. So definitely genetic and your environment faces, a big emphasis on what your personality traits are, but behavioral interventions or support intervention, doing a lot of it's, I always tell some of my students that it's like learning a language. If you think a particular language would help you in a certain area of work or some dreams to come true, you put in extra motivation, you have an extra requirement, and you will go any extent to develop that skill. So I think basically to building up resilience is if you feel you are a person who are submerged into anxiety and you're suffering a lot, too much of emotional, no self-control on impulse, feelings and reactions, that person needs to be supported by others saying that we can work on these areas and you can change from this situation. Closing it by saying it's genetically inherited and nothing can happen would be very difficult then to motivate that person to go forward. So that's how I would see it, definitely.
Thank you very much. It was a very good session indeed. And just to have the formal conclusion, I would request our executive committee member, Rajiv G, to give away the formal vote of thanks. Hope you all enjoyed the session very well.
Sudhirji, just before we stop, Nair sir from Abu Dhabi Indian School Up, the principal, is in this session. Sir, if you can be so kind to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you so much for organizing these kind of sessions. I'm sure it's a big change, from the screen, only interacting with the screen, I'm sure it's a more learning. And yes, I think with the experience and with a strong will, the resilience definitely comes. I believe the experience teaches you more resilience than anything else.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Thank you, Sajid, for organizing, and thank you, ma'am. I'm sure everybody had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Rajivji.
Hello, everyone. I'm having the role of giving vote of thanks. First, I will thank Ms. Shalini Nair, who did a wonderful presentation on psychological resilience and how to build immunity and tackle challenges. I'm sure this will work as a vaccine for all of us, particularly teachers and attendees. They deal with not only their mind, they are handling the minds of so many young children. So I'm sure they will be able to impart this or absorb this and impart it to others, which will help not only teachers, even their students. I would like to also thank principals and management of various schools, without whose contributions or whose support Science India Forum cannot move forward in our pursuit to meet our goals. And the teachers and attendees who are always our focus audience and our well-wishers. They are always supporting all the Science India Forum activities. And as you know, this series of talks are going on for the last few weeks. And I'm sure we will come with more and more interesting topics to support you all people.
Sure,
I would like to also thank Mr. K.P. Nair, who was a guest of honor for the day, and Dr. Satish Krishnan, our UAE president, and all our other Science India Forum members who had worked tirelessly for making this event a successful. Over to you, Sajid.
Thank you, Rajivji. Thank you, Sudhirji. Teachers and Sudhirji, with your permission, I would like to end this session. And till next time, stay safe and stay healthy. Shalini ma'am, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you to all. Thank you for all the very, very important people, all of you making a good choice, and I'm sure we'll go ahead positively. Thank you, sir.